Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
It is going to be a very interesting 4 years. The next year in particular is going to be very interesting. And that is because Donald Trump don't like Justin Trudeau. And Elon Musk doesn't like Justin Trudeau. More verbal barbs being exchanged today, all really in one direction, all directed at Trudeau. Today, they came from Elon Musk. We'll tell you about that. We'll tell you about the latest ATACMS missile strike inside Russia. And we'll tackle the other top news stories of the day, so stay with me. There's a lot to unpack tonight.
You know, someone very profoundly once said many years ago that if fascism ever comes to America, it'll come in the name of liberalism.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The entire world is watching.
Every dictator, every crazy dictator in the world is watching.
The world is watching. On TV, the entire world is watching. On social media.
But the entire world is watching, and yes, they are seeing what we have apparently bravely been willing to say that others are thinking.
Stand for freedom. Literally stand for freedom. Let's get this done. The entire world is watching.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
Maverick News. Maverick News. Maverick News.
Let me have more control of my own destiny.
The world is watching.
Okay, let's get right to it. Here's the post. You can see it down there. See the Elon Musk thing on X? And if you look, it says, he's such an insufferable tool, making reference to the person in the picture above, Justin Trudeau. Elon Musk continues and says, won't be in power much longer. This attached to this video clip from this speech where Trudeau says that he is, has been, always will be a male feminist.
No, it shouldn't be that way. It wasn't supposed to be that way.
Because the U.S.
We were supposed to be on a steady, if difficult sometimes,
didn't elect a woman president.
Progress. And yet, just a few weeks ago, the United States voted for a second time to not elect its first woman president. Everywhere, women's rights and women's progress is under attack, overtly and subtly. But I want you to know that I am, and always will be, a proud feminist. You will always have an ally in me and in my government. Now, it shouldn't...
Of course, that rubs some people the wrong way. Oh, man. Yeah, because so Musk obviously, responding to this clip where Trudeau describes Kamala Harris and her U.S. presidential loss as a setback for women's progress. And it's setting it's just adding to the fire that has been raging since Trump started to post about Canada being the 51st state, referring to Trudeau as governor of the great state of Canada. I shouldn't be laughing. People think it's a joke. I don't think so. There's something more going on. A lot more. Yeah, and it's more than just negotiations. It's more than just Trump posturing for upcoming trade talks. I think you can, after all of this, do you really think that's what it is? There's more to it. There just is. This talk has actually been going on for a much longer. As I've indicated on previous broadcasts, this started like 2 years ago with the trial balloons on this kind of rhetoric being floated by people, influencers who are in Trump's sphere of influence. It was coming from them a long time ago. Here's Mario Nawfal posting this saying, Canada's done with Trudeau. Approval crashes to 33%. He says Justin Trudeau's approval is sinking faster than a snowball in spring, with 67% of Canadians giving him the thumbs down, a 4-point jump since June. And then he goes on to talk about Pierre Poilievre, of course, and then reposting the Elon Musk post. That's him. That's Mario Nawfal responding to the Elon Musk post. And where are the Liberals at? Where is Trudeau at right now? Well, let's go to the 338 poll in Canada and see where the current ruling party, the Liberals, sit in the polls. It ain't looking good. Here it is. Right now, if an election were to be called, the Conservatives would again still run away in Canada with a massive majority, probably the biggest majority in Canadian history, majority government, with 227 seats in Parliament. The Liberals in second place with 47. I've heard media reports saying that the Liberals are in third. It's not true. They are in second place in the polling. And the Bloc Québécois, the separatist party of Quebec, would reel in 45 seats. The NDP, way behind that with just 22, and then the Green Party too. And when Jagmeet Singh says that his NDP, New Democratic Party, would prevail and he will become the next Prime Minister of Canada, I would say wishful thinking there, Jagmeet. He continues to prop up this Liberal government. And I have to say, too, last night we had shall I say, a colorful exchange between Maureen and Mike, two of our guests on the program last night, one by telephone, another by, it was actually just also an audio call-in. You know, there was a lot of fighting going on, with Maureen saying that she's, maybe going to look at Trudeau as a possible vote getter from her, because she doesn't really like any of the options, I don't think. And then Mike and Joseph, who was on here too, sort of taking her to task on that. But there was a lot of fighting going on. I have to say, in hindsight, it's somewhat disappointing, because we've got too much of that going on right now. And we've been in that place for too long, too many years now. There's too much division. Democrats, or shall we say, liberals and conservatives in this country, until just recently, were never enemies. And I've had people messaging me today about this exchange yesterday that they heard on the program. Conservatives and liberals in this country, in Canada, until just recently, have never really been enemies. They've been neighbors. But in the last probably 8 or 9 years, maybe 10, they've become enemies. They fight. We fight and don't listen to each other anymore. That's kind of what was going on last night. And in my view, the fight was really over nothing. It was about one person's choice or possible choice politically, who they might vote for in the next election based on their personal needs, their personal preferences, their personal views, their personal situation, and what policies being put forward in their view by a particular politician, in this case, say Justin Trudeau, well, all of them really being assessing all of the policies being put forward. Maureen's looking at voting one way, and Mike and Joseph, who are, not even Canadians, but conservatives, they, of course, are looking at things in a different perspective, and that's okay, too. But in a free and democratic society where we have free speech, freedom of thought, we're supposed to, it doesn't make a lot of sense to beat each other up over it unless you're being, attacked in some way. And I guess sort of that was going on. Cosmo wants to be on the air. You can hear him in the background there. It's unfortunate because I don't think at the end of the day conservatives and liberals on a lot of things are that far apart. But people are being pushed out to the edges, and a lot of that is because we're in this new populism mode, which has pulled people further over here, and then on the other side you're getting I would say the progressives. And it's not so much communists versus fascists. You're getting convergence on that front. I'm going to get into that in a lot more detail probably in the next couple of nights, because a lot of that flows from Russia in a way that people are not aware, and I'm going to lay it out for you. It'll help you understand what is really going on politically and why things don't make sense right now politically. I'm going to get into it in the next couple of nights. I have a real explanation for you. And this will set the stage for that. This is what I'm talking about right now in a lot of ways, because people are not getting along anymore. There was always some friction. People would disagree, sometimes argue, but not to the degree that we have it going on right now. People are so polarized, they don't want to look at any other ideas. They won't look at the other side at all. They totally dismiss it. They won't look at alternative media, or they won't look at mainstream media at all. Anything said over there, they just don't believe it. It's not that simple. Everything is really shades of gray. I wouldn't say any politician has all the answers, and the politicians that you think you can't trust doesn't mean they don't have at least some things that they're saying that are valid. In order to understand your political adversary, you need to at least listen. And God forbid they might say something that makes sense, even to you. But some people are afraid of that at this point because it sort of blows up their worldview. Well, open your minds, open your hearts a little bit too. Maybe we'll fight a lot less, and maybe we'll get to a place where we can agree a little bit more and work toward productive solutions to real problems with at least maybe a little bit of compromise on some things. I know it's a hard thing to do, but we were there at one point, almost. Now we're very, very far apart from that. It's extremely unfortunate. So, it's a lot of the social and cultural issues, I know, that are dividing people, but it was also the economy. And that was the thing. It was like the fight last night, and it was an argument It was. Okay. Entertaining, but not really. It wasn't very nice on either side, back and forth. Okay. And I love all three of them, and they were good people. And all I'm saying is, if someone says they're going to vote for somebody on the other side, say, well, I disagree with you, but okay. It's their right. They have the right to vote any way they want. They have the right to say what they want and the right to believe whatever they want. And unless they're doing something malicious to undermine the country or something, they're free to do that. And what were we fighting about? We were fighting about whether someone is spending what little tiny bit of income they have on groceries and how they're buying their groceries. And we're criticizing people back and forth over that. No. That's not productive. That's not helpful. Everybody's struggling on one level or another. Everybody's having a tough time living to the standard that we really should be, at the minimum standard. And people who are maybe a little bit more fortunate, even they're struggling to maintain their standard of living. Everybody has slipped. And that's because of inflation and the economy. And that, again, was what really was front and center today in the House of Commons as Trudeau was held to task again by Pierre Poilievre, coming on the heels of all this venomous poison being, the verbal venom being directed at Trudeau from Trump and Musk, and it continued a little bit here in the House with Pierre Poilievre, who continues to attack, but that's his job. He's the leader of the official opposition. He's probably the next prime minister, and that's because Trudeau is very unpopular right now. Here's the exchange in the House today.
Questions orales, oral questions, l'honorable.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition. The Prime Minister, who is weak, lost control of immigration, has lost control of the borders, and lost control of spending, inflation, debt, and even his own ministers, according to the Globe and Mail. Tension is rising between the PM and the Minister of Finance on the tax cut, and it's compromising his commitment to keep the deficit to $40 billion, as the Minister of Finance promised. Why is he pushing his finance minister to break her promise on this inflationary deficit? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, the Conservative leader likes to dramatize things to distract Canadians from the fact that he voted against a tax break for Canadians. He voted against dental care, which has now reached 1.2 million Canadians. He voted against investment in school food programs, and he continues to try to muzzle his members to prevent them from talking in the interest of their communities, and he refuses to obtain his security clearance to be able to protect our democracy. That's how he wants to distract Canadians. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition, the Prime Minister, is the one who's trying to muzzle his own Minister of Finance. She made a promise to limit the deficit to $40 billion, to avoid further inflation, which is costing Canadians so much that they can't feed their children. And now he has forced his minister to break her promise. And he's attacking her in the papers. Why is the Prime Minister forcing his minister to break her promise and her credibility? The Right Honourable Prime Minister. As we've just seen, why the Conservative leader keeps on playing these dramatic games. It's because inflation is now at the level that is expected by the Bank of Canada, which has led to a cut in the key rate of 0.5 percentage points. And we are here to help Canadians we have kept inflation down, but what they have done, they have voted against the school food program to help young people across our country, and he is blocking access to dental care. He is not here to help Canadians.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
This week, Prime Minister has lost control of the borders, lost control of immigration, lost control of spending, debt, and inflation. Now he's lost control of his own cabinet. Yesterday, the Globe and Mail reported that there's a big fiscal feud that has broken out between the Prime Minister and his Finance Minister. At stake is that she wanted to run a gigantic $40 billion deficit, but that was her guardrail. And now this Prime Minister is pushing her through that guardrail and pushing all Canadians off the fiscal cliff. Why?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the Conservative leader likes to make up little dramas to try and distract Canadians from the fact that he voted against a tax break for all Canadians. He's trying to hide from the fact that he continues to muzzle his own MPs so they cannot be their community's voices in Ottawa, instead being his voice in forcing them to face billions of dollars in cuts to housing programs. He continues to refuse to get his security clearance because he doesn't want to keep his own MPs safe from foreign interference. That's why he's trying to distract Canadians from what's going on.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
Muzzling, Mr. Speaker. His Liberal MPs are not speaking out against him because he's allowing so much liberty. It's because he's so weak. Right. And there's nothing worse than a weak bully. He's now cracking down on his own finance minister, some feminist. On this side of this House, I lead by inspiration while he leads by intimidation. Once again, why won't he follow my inspiration and stand up for the promise that he made to keep the deficit under $40 billion?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Once again, Mr. Speaker, we see very clearly for the Leader of the Opposition, it's all about him. Well, for us, Mr. Speaker, it's all about Canadians. It's all about giving Canadians a tax break over the next 2 months that the Conservative Leader voted against. Right. It's about delivering dental care to 1.2 million Canadians, where 3 million Canadians are already approved to access dental care in the coming year. The fact is, Mr. Speaker, we continue to be there for Canadians. He continues to be there for himself to try and block the help we're delivering to Canadians to make sure everyone thinks everything is broken because he's busy breaking it.
Order. Order. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
He's been Prime Minister for 9 years. Let's review the chronology. So, not even 8 months ago, his minister said the deficit would not exceed $40 billion, the guardrail. Then, he went and got his banker friend, Carbon Tax Carney, to become his top economic advisor, stripping the power away from his finance minister. And suddenly, the guardrail was broken. Is he really going to subject his finance minister to the humiliation of reading Carney's fiscal update, which busts through the guardrail?
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, this morning the Bank of Canada announced interest rates are going down yet again. That is terrible news for the Leader of the Opposition, but it's great news for Canadians for whom things will become more affordable. On top of that, a tax break out for Canadians over the next 2 months that the Leader of the Opposition voted against. Why, Mr. Speaker? Because he cares more about his own political interests than he does about Canadians who are struggling. Oh, he'll talk about the challenges Canadians are facing to try and instrumentalize them for his own gain, but he won't lift a finger to help Canadians.
The Honourable Member for Belleuil-Chambly. Mr. Speaker, the Parliamentary Committee of Justice tabled a report that is literally a trial against Quebec's values, because Quebec is attached to, like most Western countries, to the notion of separating church and state. And I'm wondering what the Prime Minister...
Okay, we'll pull out of this. Well,
happy and welcome in their society that has welcomed them.
This is a whole other issue, which maybe we'll touch on a little bit. So this is the exchange that just highlights the economy again. And Andrew Scheer he's the former leader of the Conservative Party, still sitting as an MP. And he says the Conservatives are going to hold the Liberals' feet to the fire when they provide their economic update next week. All of this that we've just been listening to is a prelude to what is about to come in that economic update. The fall economic update, which is actually more like a winter update, which the government is finally going to provide through Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. And Andrew Scheer, Conservative Member of Parliament, says the Conservatives are going to hold the Liberals' feet to the fire in this way.
Breaking news. Chrystia Freeland is going to table her economic update on the second last day of Parliament. She's waited all the way to December 16th to tell Canadians what the bad news is, just how big the deficit is. And if you take a look at the calendar, she's going to table it here on the 16th, and 24 hours later we'll have 1 day to question the Prime Minister on it, and then look at that. 6 weeks without having to face questions for the economic vandalism. She promised Canadians that the $40 billion deficit number would be that guardrail that would prevent our country and our economy from falling off a cliff. We don't know how big the deficit's going to be. She still won't tell us.
Possibly
so what
60
we're asking
billion.
For is that Parliament sit an extra day on the Wednesday for Prime Minister's questions so that Justin Trudeau can be held accountable for all the damage he's done to Canadians. Rather than table it and get out of Dodge and run and hide in the snow for 6 weeks, Conservatives are demanding that we sit one more day so that Canadians can get answers for just how bad Justin Trudeau's mismanaged our economy.
Not just Justin Trudeau, but his finance minister as well, although it seems like he is, in some ways, disrespecting her, throwing her under the bus, stripping her of her real authority, her real job. And that because he did bring in Mark Carney to assume a role of financial advisor to Trudeau. Of course, Carney was being considered as a possible replacement for Trudeau. That's the real reason he's there. It was a way for Trudeau to neutralize the threat. Bring Carney in as an advisor and give him some power that way. And of course, he has a strong background in economics. Now, Freeland, today, after First Minister's conference, in this scrum, asked about the financial realities and what's going on also with, what's her view on Donald Trump, the 25% tariff threat, and the insults to Canada. Here's Freeland on the hot seat in today's media scrum.
Les ministres des territoires et des provinces ont ajouté des idées. Okay, and let me just say in English. So the Prime Minister...
to cut off energy exports to the U.S.
The Prime Minister was clear in Halifax on Monday that Canada, of course, would respond to unjustified tariffs. That is what we did in 2018. and our response worked. Of course, in our discussion today with the premiers of the provinces and territories, we discussed the Canada-US relationship, we discussed the border, we also discussed the economic relationship, and a number of premiers offered strong support for a robust Canadian response. That included some of the premiers proactively naming critical minerals and metals that their provinces produce and which are exported to the United States. Obviously, other ideas were discussed as well.
Premier Ford says 100% tariffs are coming from the U.S. Do you agree with that?
You know, during the NAFTA negotiations, I learned that it's important not to get ahead of ourselves, and it is important never to answer hypothetical questions. I think we also learned that Canada needs to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. So our emphasis right now is on talking to our American friends and neighbors, on having a very broad outreach that is happening from the federal government. Premiers are part of that outreach. Business leaders are getting in touch with their American partners. Labor leaders are getting in touch with their American partners. And when it comes to the economy, what we are all talking about is how this is an economic relationship that works. It is an economic relationship which is balanced and mutually beneficial. It is an economic relationship which is balanced and mutually beneficial. However, we would be derelict in our duties to Canada if we were not also talking about, thinking about, working on how Canada would respond.
Will you cut off energy to the US?
Elon Musk vient de traiter M. Trudeau d'insupportable parce que hier, il a critiqué les Américains parce qu'ils n'ont pas élu une femme comme présidente pour une deuxième fois. Est-ce que M. Trudeau est en train de nous tirer collectivement dans le pied dans ces négociations-là?
Le Premier ministre Trudeau.
One moment. Let's just get past this French stuff. And we're going to go to Dominic LeBlanc here next. Here we go.
On the border plan, you've outlined to the premiers what you're prepared to do, and you asked them for cooperation. Ford said tonight, that's your job. The borders are your job. When and how will you unveil the billion plus in spending that we're told you're going to do? How will that roll out?
Well, it'll roll out when it rolls out. What we rolled out to the premiers tonight were details of our plan. I took note of your comments around Premier Ford. He was extremely constructive in offering suggestions of how the Ontario police, local police in Ontario could collaborate with us. That sentiment was shared by a number of premiers. They got into the details of certain marine vehicles that might be able to help and different provincial personnel.
To do what you want to do? Do you need legislation to do what you need to do?
Again, if we need legislation, we'll present legislation. We have legislation that allows the RCMP and CBSA to do the work that they've done for decades. But we recognize that there is a moment where we can make increased investments in both the RCMP and CBSA. Some of it may require legislative authorities, but there are a number of exciting moments coming up in the next few days where some of that may be included.
Sur votre plan, quand est-ce qu'on va en voir la couleur? Sur votre plan de la frontière, quand est-ce qu'on...
Okay, so you understand what's going on there. It's Canada's facing a big challenge with Donald Trump on trade and on the border issue, border security, which Trump is linking together. And Trump's former national security advisor, John Bolton, was interviewed today on CTV's Power Play. Interesting insight from Mr. Bolton. He's not a big fan of a lot of the people coming in surrounding Trump as nominees to be in Trump's administration. And he had some how can I put this? Let me just take a quote from today's interview. He says that in order for Trudeau to make things work with Trump, he needs to flatter Trump, and ultimately he will need to kiss the ring. That's what he says. Let's pick up some of this interview today with John Bolton and the advice that he provides here for the Team Canada that is being put together to negotiate new trade terms with a Trump administration. Here's Bolton on Power Play.
Weeks, the incoming president has referred to Canada as the 51st state and threatened a 25% blanket tariffs. I know you're familiar with this on all Canadian imports. He also just a few days ago called our prime minister the governor of the great state of Canada. Should we be interpreting that as a joke or something more in your view?
Well, I think as the saying goes, Trump is kidding on the straight. If asked, he'd say, of course it's a joke. And, Justin and I have a very good relationship, but I think it's an indication of what he thinks of Trudeau. And, it's mean. It's sort of a playground kind of thing, but that's Donald Trump.
You wrote in your book, The Room Where It Happened, I remember reading a few years ago, some descriptions of meetings that they had in particular at the G7 and the view of Donald Trump toward the prime minister. What was it like at that time? Do you think it was personal animosity, or it was more just about the issues and the sort of disagreement over tariffs, for example, at the time?
No, Trump doesn't care about issues. He cares about Donald Trump. And where I first saw the relationship in operation was at the G7 in Canada in 2018, where the other members of the G7 basically forced Trump into some statements in the outcome document that he didn't particularly like. I'd have to say I didn't like them either. But anyway, it was agreed. Trump got on a plane, Air Force One, because we were headed to Singapore for his first meeting with Kim Jong-un. And as we were flying over the Atlantic, I was sleeping, but Trump was up because he had heard that Prime Minister Trudeau had, in his view, insulted him in the last press conference at the close of the G7. And Trump, after he woke me up and some others, decided he was going to withdraw from the outcome document, which is unprecedented to say the least. But he was so outraged at what at that Trudeau press conference that that's what he did. So my take on the relationship is that I don't know what it was before I saw it in action at the G7, but afterward it was in deep trouble.
Is there a way to navigate that or recover from that this second time around? And I ask not just sort of out of this like gossipy, how do people get along, but because this threat that he has made would be devastating to the Canadian economy. It would instantly put it into a recession. So against that backdrop, I guess, if the federal government here were to ask you for advice on how to navigate this moving forward, what would you tell them?
Well, it's not pleasant news, but the thing to do is flatter Trump and try and work on him that way. I think the foreign leader who was most successful at dealing with Trump in his first term was Shinzo Abe. Abe didn't really lather on the flattery, but he spent time with Trump constantly, on the phone, in person, on the golf course, never letting much time go by between conversations, just making sure they were in touch, telling him what Japan's interests were, so that it didn't come to a point where there was a crisis and he needed something from Trump. It wasn't always successful for Abe. It certainly took a lot of his time. But as I say, I think it worked more than any other approach that I saw during my time there.
If that were to be employed here, and it seems, I should say, there are some indications. For example, the Prime Minister flew down to Mar-a-Lago to have a meeting with the incoming president a few weeks ago on the Friday evening of the American Thanksgiving long weekend. Like, if that is pursued, do you think that relationship you witnessed could turn into a different one? Like, essentially, I mean, your book talked a lot about this too. Like, Trump doesn't really like to forgive and forget, but is that possible in this instance, do you think?
Well, it's always possible if somebody kisses the ring. I mean, that's what Trump likes. It's not positions on tariffs. That's not the issue. And, I'd have to say for the current government or subsequent governments, Trump for Trump, numbers kind of come and go, 25%, 5%, 80%. Who knows what it'll be? That's designed to throw people off their stride. I think it's important to maintain contact with all levels in the Trump administration as it's put together. I think a trade war between the U.S. and Canada and Mexico would be a catastrophically bad decision on Trump's part, but he doesn't understand how tariffs work. He thinks the exporting company pays the tariff. He doesn't realize it's the American importer that pays it and then passes the cost on to American consumers. So good luck with trying to educate him on that.
You really think even after all these years that he still thinks that that's the case?
I can point to you the NBC evidence with Kristen Welker a few days ago where she said, people think that American consumers end up paying the cost of increased tariffs. And Trump said, quote, "I don't agree."
Yeah, I remember it well. She said economists from all different angles say that that's the case. And you're absolutely right. He said, "I don't agree." Just wanted to get you also, Ambassador, on another issue that certainly you've been vocal on and we're very interested in here in Canada. That's the sort of preservation of NATO moving forward. Because in that same interview, he did very specifically say something, to be fair, that he said before, which is basically the prospect of leaving the military alliance is there if, quote unquote, member states don't pay up. As it stands, Canada is one of those member states who has not met the NATO target. Just this summer, our federal government outlined a plan to, sort of the broad strokes of a plan to get there by 2032. Do you think Canada is in trouble when it comes to defense spending with Trump in the presidency?
Well, I think he'll beat whoever is prime minister over the head with it constantly. The fact is the United States has to defend Canada because we're all around you. And if the Russian missiles ever come over the pole, that's something that's obviously critical to both of us. You should get defense spending up to 2% of GDP. I mean, it's that simple. But that's not enough to satisfy Trump. That's the ostensible point. But in other conversations on NATO, he's talked about how foreign governments, particularly the European Union, have negotiated unfair trade deals with the United States. He has a lot of gripes, and the actual withdrawal from NATO could be precipitated by what happens in Ukraine or a number of other events. And basically it's because Trump thinks we defend Europe and Canada, we don't get anything out of it, and they don't pay. So why are we in NATO? That's what he thinks. And the best hope, I think, of avoiding American withdrawal is to distract him for the next 4 years. I do. I really do. I think our other bilateral alliances with countries like Japan and South Korea are also in trouble.
Okay, yeah, so he says he thinks NATO is in trouble because of Trump's position on this stuff. And I have a question, okay? What is it with this guy? Like, what is it with that look, those weird eyes? I've seen multiple photos of Kash Patel, and he's got these crazy eyes. I can't get it out of my head. It's like he's hypnotized me with his mesmerizing eyes. What is it with this? He looks crazy. He scares me just looking at me. This is the guy Trump has picked as his nominee to become the new head of the FBI. I don't want him to be the head of the FBI because I don't know if I can stand. I don't know if I can take the gaze for the next 4 years and maybe longer. It creeps me out. I'm just saying. There's something weird about that. And tonight we're seeing that the current FBI director, Chris Wray, has said he is going to step down from his post early next year. That'd be like next month. And this is because Donald Trump has signaled his intent to fire Wray anyway and replace him with Crazy Eye Guy. What is this? What? I told you it's going to be a very interesting 4 years. And in fact, Trump is the guy who appointed Wray. to the current 10-year term, and he did that back in 2017 after firing James Comey. And now he wants to fire Wray, and now he wants to bring in Crazy Eye Guy, and now Christopher Wray is saying he's not going to stick around long enough to give Donald Trump the pleasure of firing him. Where's the clip I have of... Here we are here. Let's get it from the man himself, Christopher Wray. He's like, that's okay, Donald. You're not going to have me to kick around anymore. I'm quitting before you take office. Here's Christopher Wray.
After weeks of careful thought, I've decided the right thing for the Bureau is for me to serve until the end of the current administration in January and then step down. After a week.
So there he is. And that's what's going to happen. Yeah. And look, I don't know if we're going to get Crazy Eye Guy or not. I don't know if he'll be confirmed. But we will see. It's, you know, a lot of this is happening because of what happened to Trump. The Russia stuff, the spying, right? The bugging or wiretapping that we learned about, the just the politics surrounding all of it, the top secret documents, the FBI raids on Mar-a-Lago, all of it. What a rocky ride it's been for the past 8 years, and now we're in for 4 more as Trump prepares to take office again, maybe with Crazy Eye Guy over there at the FBI. Apparently, as part of the effort he's going to be part of the effort to drain the swamp, whatever that means. And as I look back, you know, I have to say, some people say, oh, it was such a great 4 years when Trump was president. No, it was a pretty good 2 years. And then the pandemic hit. And then it was like, so I don't know if we're broadcasting or not right now. I'm going to check over here and see if we're on at all. This is not good. Are we back? I don't know if we're back. Oh, I guess we are back on. Okay. Yeah, we went black. Our internet was disconnected. Our internet was disconnected, but I don't know what caused that. Very, very frustrating. Okay. Well, we will continue with the broadcast then, I guess, and let me just, I'm just going to run a little promo here, transition, while I check a couple of the settings and make sure that we're stabilized, and we'll proceed on the other side. So I guess now is as good a time as any, since we're having difficulty, to ask for your help. Might as well do that. Thank you. You know, also, to those of you who have helped in the past, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's humbling, and it's a privilege to sit in the chair every night and have you guys join the broadcast and support us even just by watching. And for those of you who have donated in the past to support the program, thank you, thank you, thank you. Now I have to be straight up. We're struggling here because we really haven't had much in the way of donations at all in the past month, and the bills are piling up. So if you want to keep us on the air, keep us doing what we're doing to help cover the costs, and there are costs associated with doing the program every night, you can do that by donating at freedomreporters.com. freedomreporters.com. Now, normally I would say we would provide if with a $30 donation or more, we'd send you a T-shirt and so on, $60 or more, and I would send you a sweatshirt. But with the postal strike on, the couriers have quadrupled the shipping rates. So it's making it prohibitive, like it's impossible to ship stuff out right now. So that's going to be delayed. Now, if you do donate, I will still send that stuff to you when the postal strike is over and shipping rates return to something closer to normal. I promise I will do that. Just make a notation. If you do make a donation, tell me what size you need and what it is exactly that you'd like, whether you'd like a Maverick News T-shirt or a Trump Fight T-shirt or a Trump Fighting T-shirt or a hoodie or whatever it is that you're looking for, or a Exile the Knights of Malta T-shirt, and I'll send that along as a thank you for making the donation to the program. It covers the costs of the streaming software, the production software, our subscription services, all of the other things that cost money, even being on Rumble. It actually costs us money every month. There's a fee associated with that. It's just the way it is, and it all adds up. And at the end of the month, we had to switch over. I was able to cut costs quite a bit over the past 8 weeks, but they're still substantial every month. That's why we had to let that phone system go too, the call-in phone system. There just wasn't enough support to keep it going, and it was costing us far too much every month. We were continuing to run at a loss, and I can only absorb personally so much in terms of the red ink. So thank you to all those of you who have supported us, and thank you to those who may support us in the future and currently. And you can also support us just by hitting the thumbs up, liking, sharing, subscribing. Please consider subscribing over on Rumble. Doesn't cost you a thing, and it goes a long way to spreading the word, helping the channel expand and grow. And again, it doesn't cost you any money at all to do that. And we appreciate that kind of support very much as well. So please subscribe, like, and share. Let's get back to the news of the day, shall we? I'm glad we're still on the air. Almost just signed everything off. I can tell you that there was another ATACMS missile strike inside Russia overnight, hitting Taganrog. I think I'm pronouncing that correctly, in the Rostov region. And they hit, the Ukrainians hit buildings of some sort of an industrial complex there, which were damaged. And so they were in there about somewhere inside of about 700 kilometers. And so these are military targets, again, that are being hit with these missiles. And here I've got video to share with you to show you what happened there. Russian state media, as I understand it, is reporting that it was no big deal, and whatever happened, that there really wasn't much, if any, damage. These things were shot down, but it looks like that's not really true. The damage was quite substantial. And here we go. as you can see. So an industrial complex, I think an oil refinery was also hit. Again, a legitimate military target. So that's another major development because now the Russians are again rattling the saber, and there are intelligence reports tonight suggesting that the Russians are preparing to again launch one of those IRBMs, intermediate range ballistic missiles, one of those Oreshniks. And what they're basing that on, I don't know, but that is the word that we're getting from sources who are citing intelligence as the information behind that. So we'll see what happens with that. U.S. military saying that they don't really see those Oreshniks as a real game changer, but that may just be rhetoric downplaying the significance of that threat. I don't know. To me, it doesn't. It seems like it got a lot of media play, but I don't think the technology is really that new. I think it's actually, so I guess the real danger here is that it is destabilizing because if the Russians are to be believed, there isn't much defense against them to really shoot them down. And because they're so close, they can hit targets inside Europe within minutes, which, if you think about it, this is another reason why the whole NATO encroachment on Russia with missiles in Ukraine just doesn't hold water. And it's because missile technology on all sides has advanced exponentially over the years. And so now all sides have missiles that fly, at supersonic and even hypersonic speeds. So the distances between, from countries that are even outside the, from like locations inside Europe, they can fire back at Russia and hit targets within minutes as well. You can fire missiles from submarines off the coast of a country, both sides, and hit targets in either the United States or Russia, inside Russian territory, within minutes. You don't need to put them in Cuba. You don't need to put them in Ukraine in order to have the same level of threat. So these arguments from the political side, it's as much propaganda as anything else. It's an excuse for Putin to be doing what he's doing. If you really sit back and try to look at this information objectively, analyze it with an objective lens, that's the truth. Missile technology makes the missiles inside a country like Ukraine virtually irrelevant anyway. It's a matter of, they can also put these missiles inside already other NATO countries that sit right on the borders of Russia and strike inside Russia from there. There's no advancement of an existential threat to Russia by putting missiles inside Ukraine. And that's not actually what Zelensky was saying anyway. He wants to join NATO so they don't have to, as he put it, so they don't have to look at a nuclear option and putting nuclear missiles back onto Ukrainian soil. He'd rather just be a member of NATO and use that as a deterrent instead of using nuclear weapons as a deterrent. And even though I continue to see these reports indicating that Biden wants to give Ukraine nuclear weapons, that has been, from everything I've seen and heard directly from the White House, that has been ruled out. They're not going to give Ukraine nuclear weapons. And because of that, yes, Zelensky is playing an information game and talking about that, but the U.S. isn't going to give them nukes because that is a major provocation in a way. And they don't want to do that. In fact, they've been very careful about each step of escalation. And it's the escalation that's coming from the Russian side that is escalating things. It's not the United States firing experimental missiles into Russian space, Russian airspace, and onto mainland Russia. It's the Russians using experimental missiles on human living targets inside a country they invaded. And I'm sorry, it's just a fact. But somehow people's minds turned inside out. Just ask Crazy Eyes. He's been talking about it himself. But he's regurgitating propaganda points, not actual information. And certainly not analyzing it objectively. Believe what you want, but if you're only listening to one side, you're only getting half the story. And in fact, you might not be getting the story at all, because a lot of the time, it's not so much about what you are told or what a journalist tells you. It's what they don't tell you, what they choose not to ask. If they're journalists at all, and some people, not just me, other people are really beginning to question what the hell is going on with Tucker Carlson. Here's a U.S. Army veteran. This man's name is Ryan Macbeth, a U.S. vet. You know, a veteran of actual combat experience, so he knows what it's like to be under fire. And he takes issue with this whole ATACMS missile logic as well, coming from the Kremlin and being regurgitated by people like Tucker Carlson in particular, who's given this a lot of play and added a lot of mileage to the information coming out of Moscow with regard to this, saying that, you know, the Russian position is the ATACMS missiles are really an attack by NATO and the United States on Russia, because the Ukrainians can't use them on their own. They have to actually be fired by U.S. service personnel, because only they know how to use them and only they have access to the actual technology, which is not actually true in my estimation. Certainly the Ukrainians are extremely capable when it comes to technical things. They've proven that with the development of all kinds of new drone technology that they have improvised on, expanded on, improved upon. They're building their own. They become very self-sufficient in that way. And as this U.S. veteran indicates here, he sees no reason why the Ukrainians can't use these ATACMS independent of the United States, and even access to satellite systems in order to set them up and provide the tracking and navigation for these devices. You know, any country can purchase access to satellite time in order to facilitate that kind of activity. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Tucker Carlson is lying.
American military personnel launched missiles into mainland Russia.
So here's why this is a lie. There's basically this Russian narrative that Ukrainians are so provincial and stupid that they don't have the mental ability to launch ATACMS missiles. Therefore, Americans must be firing those missiles. Let me tell you something. I have met 13 Mikes before. If a 19-year-old with an anime car rap can successfully navigate HIMARS training, a Ukrainian who's been fighting for 3 years can do it as well. Now, has the United States given ISR, or intelligence surveillance reconnaissance data, to Ukraine so that Ukraine can perform targeting more effectively? I would say that's likely. I served as an infantryman for 20 years. I deployed to combat. I know that lies can endanger the force protection status of our American soldiers. And right now, Tucker, you are endangering the lives of American soldiers. You are no patriot. And I really hope this was worth your ego boost.
Yeah. Tucker Carlson sat there and said American military personnel launched those missiles into Russia. Says Americans did it. That's dangerous talk. Dangerous. You want to talk about escalation? That's escalation. What Tucker Carlson is doing. Tucker Carlson is escalating the conflict because he's feeding into the information war and giving Russia ammunition to fire up people back in Moscow, in Russia, get them angry, to build public support for more military escalation on the Russian side. This is the justification that is needed for more escalation. Tucker Carlson is feeding that and legitimizing it. If Tucker Carlson really wanted peace, he'd be a lot more careful about what he says. It's not his place to say something like that in that way, especially when it's arguably simply not true. And if he's going to say that Americans fired those missiles and pulled the trigger, I think he should back that up with verifiable, concrete, visible evidence. I'd like to see it. Not just an opinion or a statement that is just a statement based on what? Just something he said, backed up with a Russian perspective on an issue that really needs a balanced perspective in order to keep the peace. Yeah, I'm not impressed. Leave it at that for now. Yeah. A lot of people say they want peace, but not really.
Who's got a plan? Sitting in the Kremlin, dreaming of the days when the Soviets were winning. Ukraine's on its way out, NATO in its sight, but its soldiers keep retreating from the fight. Putin, you got a thing, you can't top Putin, you got a war hanging up, the world's on edge, he's losing his game, but he's ready to light up the flame. Putin, you go. You gotta start, you gotta fight. Running through the six failed you. You met the edge, you cannot view. Wouldn't you go? His plans unravel, he goes bruised. The West won't budge in his allies refuse. But instead of retreat, he doubles down. The Russian clouds is his final crown. Putin, you got a reason's gone. Putin, you got he sings his swan song. The whole world's watching, hold his breath while he dances with the devil of death. Putin, you got. 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 What you got? What you got? What you got?
I don't want to get nuked. Please don't. Javier Milei. Argentina. We were talking about the projected deficit for Canada, 40 billion, maybe as high as 60 billion. We'll find out next week on the 16th. But over in Argentina, this politician who came to power campaigning with a chainsaw, vowing to cut government waste and government spending and fight inflation, has done just that. Check it out, man. He says that as of today, they have sustained a fiscal surplus free of default for the first time in 123 years in Argentina. A historic achievement. It was just a year ago, he says, that the government of Argentina printed 13% of gross domestic product and fueling inflation, and the former government was doing that to win electoral favor, but instead they voted for austerity, fiscal responsibility, and now Argentina is, at least at this point, on some sort of road to financial recovery. But it's important to remember and understand, which very few people do, that when any government says that they have achieved some sort of budget surplus, it means for that fiscal year. It doesn't mean that it wipes away all of the debt. It means that they are spending less than they are taking in. And that puts them into a surplus for the year. And then that surplus can be applied to the debt, but I don't know what the total national debt of Argentina is. Nevertheless, it is absolutely a major step in the right direction. And here's Milei at a news conference. And this is my French-Canadian accent, introducing the man from Argentina.
El déficit era el
The
huevo de
deficit was the snake's
serpiente
egg
de
of all
todos
our
nuestros
illnesses.
males, ya que sin déficit
Since
no hay
without a
deuda,
deficit,
ni
there is no
emisión,
debt,
ni
no
inflación.
issuance, and no inflation.
Hoy tenemos superávit
Today we have
fiscal
sustained fiscal
sostenido,
surpluses
libre
free
de
of default.
default, por primera vez
For
en
the
los
first time
últimos
in the last
123
123
años.
years.
Esto fue gracias a
This
hacer el
was thanks
ajuste
to the
más grande en la
largest
historia de la
adjustment in the
humanidad,
history of
de
mankind and
aplicar
apply
un
a
torniquete a la
tourniquet
emisión
to
monetaria
monetary
hasta
issuance until
llevarla
it
a
is brought
cero.
to zero.
Hace exactamente
Exactly
un
1 year
año,
ago, a fiscal
un degenerado
degenerate,
fiscal que no voy a nombrar,
which I will not
venía de
name, came
imprimir
from
13
printing
puntos
13
del
points of
PBI en un año
GDP
para ganar una elección,
to win an
sin
election with no
cuidado de la
regard for the
inflación que iba a
inflation it would
generar.
generate.
Hoy la emisión
Today, monetary
monetaria
issuance
es
is a thing
cosa
of the
del
past.
pasado.
And that ends that clip. Oh, there's Crazy Eye Guy again. Don't those eyes just creep you out? Somehow they do me. I don't know. I'm going to look in the chat. What do you think of Kash Patel's crazy eyes? What do you think of Kash Patel's crazy eyes? Hello, Maverick family. Tell me. Tell me. Yeah, I wish we could have a budget surplus. We've been there before under conservative governments. We have. Yeah, Tucker the liar. Absolutely right, Jubilee. He is. He's lying. He's lying. Liar, liar, pants on fire. Hanging from a telephone wire. Yeah. Let me see here. What do we got going on in the chat? Hello there, Dragon. Hello, Just Me, Deb. Hello, Norfa. Crafty Girl. We got Dog Mom, Jubilee, Be Lovely. Hello, everybody. What do you think of Crazy Eye Guy? Oh, yeah, well, people say look into e-transfer for donations. Yeah, we certainly can do that. You can... Here, I'll put it up here on the screen, actually, where you can do that. The only thing is, we're not set up for auto deposit, so if anybody wants to donate using e-transfer, you need to complete the security question and to sign the, I recommend using the word Maverick, Maverick, all lowercase, as the answer to the security question. Then we can complete the transaction and get the donation. Because for proper accounting and for taxes and all of that stuff, it goes into a business account. And so not a personal account to me. It goes into the business account so that it's used for business purposes, which is to cover the expenses here for all of the things. And we handle it that way. So let me put it up on the screen where you can do that. And it is Maverick Multimedia at mail.com. So you can do that there. And it's up on the screen, maverickmultimedia.com. Oh, hang on, I didn't put it in the right place. I'm still not used to this new system. Let me take a little break. I'm going to get something set up here, and I'll come back, and we'll do it right. Hang on a sec. Here.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Yeah, so here you go. Here's the email. I did it again. Right there. Maverick Multimedia at mail.com. Not Gmail, just mail. Maverick Multimedia at mail.com. So, yeah, you can send e-transfers there. And thank you to those of you who are supportive. And that would be all of you. Thank you. Yeah, again, let me take a little break here and take care of a little thing, and then we'll be right back with more news.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, what else do we have for you tonight? Did you hear about Quebec's plan to ban public prayer? Yeah. That's the Premier's plan there. Legault. And that has sparked some pretty substantial pushback from, I guess, rights groups and religious organizations, churches. Here's the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. You know, I think what this really is it's the Premier trying to address these protests that we've seen in the streets and on university campuses where people have been, crouching down, blocking traffic, praying in the streets and things of that nature. And so, oh my, I think I just lost my tab. Yeah, hang on a second here. Man, I hate it when I do that. I clicked on something and away it went. I'll bring it back up. Here it is. All right. I'll show you this letter from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. Such a cumbersome process getting stuff up on the screen. Here it is. They've sent a demand letter to the Premier of Quebec. It says here the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms announces that a demand letter has been sent to the Premier of Quebec, François Legault, who recently threatened to ban prayer in public spaces and to shield any constitutional challenges to the ban by invoking the notwithstanding clause of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, so found in the Constitution book that I have right there. Such a ban is a totalitarian suppression of the freedoms of expression and of conscience and religion. And then on December 6th, Premier Legault stated publicly that his government is considering a ban on prayer in public. This followed upon media reports of Muslims praying in classrooms at a school in Laval, Quebec. Similar stories from around the province over the last year have prompted investigations by education officials in 17 schools. Premier Legault was quoted in a December 6 CBC story saying, quote, "Seeing people praying in the streets and public parks is not something we want in Quebec. When we want to pray, we go to church, we go to a mosque, but not in the public spaces. And yes, we will look at the means where we can act legally or otherwise." Premier Legault further indicated that his government was willing to invoke the notwithstanding clause of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, which would shield the ban from constitutional challenges for a period of 5 years. In a demand letter to the Premier, constitutional lawyer Olivier Séguin wrote that far from reinforcing secularism, the ban on praying in public places would contradict the principles on which the secularism law is based. 1, the religious neutrality of the state, and 2, the equality of all citizens, and 3, freedom of religion. Quote, "Your approach to the situation," stated Mr. Séguin, "suggests a militant, anti-religious, and dogmatic conception of one of the healthier and oldest practices that human beings have maintained in their relationships with their fellow human beings and with a higher power." Mr. Séguin continued, "The ban on prayer announced by the Premier borrows from the intolerant overtones of a state atheism that flourished east of the Iron Curtain during the 20th century, and of which history has retained only sad memories. In so doing, our government would be violating the principles of religious neutrality, equality, and freedom of religion on which the secular state is supposed to be based." Indeed, I must agree. As much as I don't like to see people blocking traffic and praying in the streets, when, in my view, that is more of a political statement and protest than an effort to practice one's religion, I still don't think that the government should go after public prayer in that way. It's an absolute assault on freedom. And the fact that the Premier of Quebec needs to reach for the notwithstanding clause in order to make it stick for at least a 5-year period shows that it's overreach. So if I have to put up with some people praying in the streets, even if they're not from my religion, then so be it. I will tolerate that because I'm a Canadian, and we're a society that has largely been built on compromise and tolerance of things that maybe we don't even like or agree with. But in order to get along and keep our society peaceful, we tolerate other people's beliefs and practices. And that means free speech for everyone and freedom of religion and freedom to express one's self through one's religion, even in a public space, especially in a public space. Not to say that it gives you license to break laws, or I would say to not block traffic. Maybe pass a law where you're not allowed to, I don't know, pray if it's putting someone's life in danger, which praying in traffic could. You could argue that. But, yeah, people came to Canada and the United States. They came to North America, a lot of people seeking religious freedom. And the JCCF is quite right when they point out that those religious freedoms were completely stomped on when the Iron Curtain, the wall, as we would refer to it, was still up during the Cold War, and before that under the Soviet era. And even now, in a lot of places around the world, you're seeing that kind of, that's exactly, one of the main issues in a lot of Muslim countries like Iran, where they have, basically a state-sanctioned, state-run, state-controlled religion. And even in Russia, to some degree, I would say, you kind of run into that as well. And Zelensky and Ukraine, accused of preventing Russian-speaking people from practicing their religion, there's a reason why those churches were shut down. They keep citing that as, using that as ammunition against support for the war over there. But if you really look at it, you examine it, you ask people who are there on the ground, what you'll find is that the churches that were shut down were Russian Orthodox churches. The Russian Orthodox Church has it's basically it's a creation of the state, an extension of the Russian government, and they were still up and running in Ukraine, but there were a lot of concerns, accusations, and some credible evidence to suggest that a lot of these churches were engaged in funneling information back to the Russian government from within Ukraine and helping to facilitate the kidnapping of Ukrainian children. And that is also a fact, that this has happened and that thousands of Ukrainian children were whisked away from the country. And Putin, even I, for a time, was buying into the whole idea that, or the narrative, that these children were being scooped up to get them out of harm's way from war zones. But now we're seeing that no, the children have been taken by the thousands, and they've been taken to Russia with no plan to ever return them to their parents or their families. This is one of the reasons the Ukrainians continue to fight. So I don't know how you would feel about it if suddenly someone from a foreign country came in and scooped up your children and whisked them away to some other country where they were then going to be educated and taught to speak a completely different language and learn a completely different culture, and not to be returned to you. But that's what was going on. That's why those churches were closed, because of funneling information, spying. And that's why. Sorry. Don't shoot the messenger. You will anyway, some of you, but that's okay. We've seen other organizations, too, church groups, too, come out and express their opposition to Quebec's plan to ban public prayer. It is, I think, extremely dangerous. It's a slippery slope. You do it, and it would be across the board. It wouldn't be directed at just Muslims. It would be, directed at everyone. But you have to be careful about these things. Shouldn't do it, because what's used against someone that you perceive to be engaged in something you don't like, or your enemy, or however you view that other group of people, use it against them today, then you're out of power tomorrow, and they're going to use it against you later. Or someone else will use it against you. So don't do it, man. That's a very dangerous precedent. You strip one person of some of their rights, and we all get stripped of, it erodes all of our rights. If you take some rights away from Muslims, you're taking them away from everybody. Fortunately, there are people out there who are not Muslims. There's some Catholics out there who see it that way too, and that's why the BC, the Quebec bishops This article in BC Catholic, Quebec bishops object to the Premier's call for public prayer restrictions. As you can see, right... Oops, that's not the right one. Is this it? No, got to go down lower. There it is. Right there, BC Catholic. This is the article. Okay, and it says Quebec's Catholic bishops issued a sharp response to Premier Francois Legault's suggestion to ban prayer in public spaces, warning that such a move could erode fundamental freedoms and remove people and communities of faith from Quebec's public space as recently. Legault made the proposal at a press conference last week, suggesting his government might use the notwithstanding clause to shield such a ban from constitutional challenges. His comments sparked criticism from religious leaders and federal politicians alike. And then in an open letter released Tuesday, Bishop Martin Laliberté, president of the Assembly of Catholic Bishops of Quebec, and prohibiting public prayer would be both impractical and discriminatory. The bishops expressed concern that such measures disproportionately target minority religious groups while ignoring the diversity that has historically enriched Quebec's identity. The bishop said public spaces already accommodate a wide variety of activities, many of which temporarily limit access, such as sports, and questioned why spiritual or religious practices should be treated differently. And then they also pointed to the broader societal impact, noting that religious groups organize public events not only for prayer but for charitable purposes, and they asked whether prayer would be suppressed during such gatherings. Prayer is not dangerous, the bishops wrote, emphasizing that fears about public prayer often stem from misconceptions about minority faith communities. They stressed the importance of dialogue and mutual understanding, echoing Pope Francis's calls for interreligious engagement. It goes on. It's a slippery slope. Don't do it. Don't do it. That's my word on this. Don't do it. What else do we have? Just want to make sure we're not missing anything here tonight. Yeah, we got Chris Wray. We did that. We've got, what else? We talked about Bolton and his views on what Trump is doing with trade. Chrystia Freeland, the UAV attack. Oh, yes. What about those mysterious drones spotted over New Jersey? Talk about conspiracy theories. A New Jersey congressman is saying that he believes, this is Jeff Van Drew, he's a Republican, and he says that the mystery drones are coming from an Iranian mothership parked off the east coast of the U.S. of A. I don't know if you've seen video of these things, but some of them are pretty darn big. Really big. And a whole bunch of them seen by a lot of people. This is not like it's not really like just a conspiracy theory. There is, like, these things really do exist. They're out there. It's just not clear what they are. Here's the politician getting his moment in the limelight on Fox News. Did I just lose it? No, here we go.
I'm going to tell you the real deal. Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones. That mothership is off, I'm going to tell you the deal. It's off the east coast of the United States of America. They've launched drones, is everything that we can see or hear. And again, these are from high sources. I don't say this lightly. Now, we know there was a probability it could have been our own government. We know it's not our own government because they would have let us know. It could have been some really glorified hobbyists that were doing something unbelievable. They don't have the technology. But let's pretend that's possible. The third possibility was somebody, an adversarial country, doing this. Know that Iran made a deal with China to purchase drones, motherships, and technology in order to go forward. The sources I have are good. They can't reveal who they are because they are speaking to me in confidentiality. These drones should be shot down. Whether it was some crazy hobbyist that we can't imagine or whether it is Iran, and I think it very possibly could be, they should be shot down. We are not getting the full deal, and the military is on alert with this.
Okay. Do you think? I don't know. What does he mean by mothership? I listen to that. I instantly think that that it would be like a sailing ship, not like a spaceship. But does he mean spaceship, like a space mothership, or a drone mothership from Iran? I just don't know. Can we? I have some photos here, I think, of the. I don't know if you're able to see this or not. I'm going to show you the drones in these photos. There it is there. And there's the dude. Oh, there's an Iranian dude. And there's a little teeny speck thing. Yeah. I don't know. What do you guys think? Pretty weird. And then we're hearing that some of these are as big as an SUV or a recreational vehicle even flying around up there, that they're really, really big. Is that true? I don't know. Anyway, U.S. Pentagon is saying they have no actual real evidence to support what Jeff Van Drew is saying about this. This was the Defense Department briefing today with Sabrina Singh, the Defense Department Secretary. Let's listen to what she has to say about this.
Jen. Sabrina, can you tell me what the Pentagon is doing to address this issue of drone sightings over New Jersey? It's near sensitive installations. The FBI is involved. What is the Pentagon doing?
Sure. So at this time, aware of those drone sightings that have been reported, at this time we have no evidence that these activities are coming from a foreign entity or the work of an adversary. We're going to continue to monitor what is happening, but at no point were our installations threatened when this activity was occurring.
Can you rule out that these are American drones or U.S. military drones?
These are not U.S. military drones. Again, this is being investigated by local law enforcement. What our initial assessment here is that these are not drones or activities coming from a foreign entity or adversary.
Representative Jeff Van Drew, who is a Republican from New Jersey, was just on the air saying that Iran launched a mothership probably about a month ago that contains these drones, and that mothership is off the coast of the east coast of the United States. Is there any truth to that?
There is not any truth to that. There is no Iranian ship off the coast of the United States, and there's no so-called mothership launching drones towards the United States.
No, it's aliens. It's the aliens, the alien mothership. That's what it is. I don't know, but these things are real, whatever they are, flying around in the air. You would think that in this day and age, if they, I'm a little worried, if they can't figure out what these things are, If this is all it takes to just invade U.S. airspace and fly around them over top of New Jersey, and they don't even know what they are, and they can just fly around up there, doesn't make sense to me. It just does not make sense. What are they going to do if enemy aircraft, enemy jets, or missiles are fired at the U.S.? What then? They can't even handle a weather balloon or a Chinese spy balloon or whatever those things were. Now these things are flying around, and they're just like letting them fly. We're not being told something. Somebody knows. But is it an Iranian mothership? You'd think that they would instantly shoot those damn things right down. So that doesn't make sense either. If they were Iranian drones from an Iranian mothership, they'd blow them out of the sky faster than I can eat my mom's apple pie. Or the pumpkin. Although I didn't get any pumpkin pie over Thanksgiving this year. Well, maybe she'll make some for Christmas and make up for it. She just doesn't make pie the way she used to. Yeah. Times they are a-changin'. Pie. Pumpkin pie. Yeah, my mom's pumpkin pie. Yeah, she used to make it all the time. She'd sit after I moved out, when I got old, when I growed up and became almost an adult. She'd always send me home with pie. She still would do that, but she just times are changing a bit. She just doesn't have the energy to bake pies the way she used to. But you never know. Christmas is coming. Maybe she'll find some energy and we'll get one over the holidays. What are you guys doing for the holidays? Whatever it is, I think it's a time for us to join with family and friends and look back too and remember the before times. Miss those days. Wasn't so long ago. Things feel so strange right now, but somehow I think we'll still get back. Gotta believe. Gotta have faith. We'll make it. Love you guys. I'll see you tomorrow, 7 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Maverick News Channel. I'm going to leave you tonight. Well, what am I going to leave you with? What would you like to hear? I'm going to leave you with a song. Well, we played Free Dog the other night, and I just like this one, so I'm just going to play it. It's fun. It's from the before times. It's about the before times. It's just about driving, wind in your hair, in a little black Corvette. See you tomorrow night on the flip side.
Well, she's sitting in the driveway all dressed in black. Got that slick paint, you know she got the knack. Chrome glimmers in the moonlight, like a star on the rise. When I slide behind the wheel, I feel alive. Oh, I can't deny. Got the little black vest, she's my midnight ride. Rolling down the highway with my girl by my side. Fast as a whisper, smooth as a dream. In my little black vest, we're a rock and roll team. Leather seats and a rumble that shakes the ground. With the top down low, we're lost in the sound. That engine growls like a lion's roar. Every mile we take, I just want more. Got the little black vest, she's my midnight ride. Rolling down the highway with my girl by my side. Fast as a whisper, smooth as a dream. In my little black van, we're a rock and roll team. that street, the wind in our hair can't be beat. With the guitar waiting under the stars so bright, in my little black bed, everything feels right.
God bless America. God bless American muscle. See you tomorrow.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.